I'm Nadia Taylor, Training and Exercise Manager for the Readiness Support Center. And this is Semper Gumby, a podcast about emergency management in the Corps of Engineers. We'll cover topics about disaster response and recovery, FEMA mission assignments, and Corps-specific response authorities under which we operate for things like flood fighting and coastal emergencies. Today we're talking about Urban Search and Rescue, or the US&R program, and we have with us Tom Niedernhofer and Mike Baker. So Tom, what do you do for the Corps?
Well, what I do for the Corps, my current job is I'm the program manager for the headquarters Urban Search and Rescue program. And my background, of course, has to be structural engineering. And currently I'm at a 30-year career with the Corps and have design experience, which is all required for becoming a structure specialist. And for this position, I happen to be in the right place at the right time and available to help manage the program.
And Mike, how about you? What do you do for the Corps?
Well, I'm a civil structural engineer, and currently I'm in the water management section at the Buffalo District. And my background for the Urban Search and Rescue is prior to working for the Corps, I worked for consulting firms in bridge design, highway design, bridge assessment, building assessments, and bridge inspection, condition inspections.
Thanks, guys. Again, I just want to say thank you so much up front for being here and for agreeing to discuss this with us. And I'm really excited to go over kind of an overview of this mission because I think there are a lot of misconceptions, especially about Urban Search and Rescue and our role in it. So I guess let's begin about just the start of the program. Now, in my research, I found that the national program kind of got started after 1989, after the earthquake in San Francisco.
That's correct. The 89 earthquake was a disaster that happened on the West Coast, but it immediately followed the Hurricane Hugo event on the East Coast. And it really put the available resources for responding to a FEMA mission in short supply. And fast forward, immediately after these two events have sort of settled and, you're able to, let's say the federal government's able to take a look at what can we do to do things better. They realized they needed a national urban search and rescue program. So by 1991, the Corps had already been tasked by Forces Command to be the lead entity for the engineering portion. And with that, in 1992, the first training class was delivered.
So what does that mean exactly about Corps involvement with the national program? What role does the Corps play in the national US&R response system as far as like responding to FEMA missions and natural disasters or man-made disasters of that kind?
In the big picture, the National Urban Search and Rescue Response System, or under the ESF 9, Emergency Support Function 9, Search and Rescue of National Response Framework, the DoD, and namely the Corps of Engineers, has some functions they have to provide as a assisting agency to support that FEMA mission. And one of those things is we stand up a cadre of trained, let's say rescue-trained, qualified structural engineers. And then we have specialized equipment that we maintain and pre-position around the country to help us in a response. And then we also provide the doctrine and training to train all the structure specialists in that system. Keep in mind there's 28 national FEMA task forces made up of volunteers. Each is about 220 members, and there's 6 engineers on each one of those teams, and they're trained the same as Mike and I as structure specialists. We're interchangeable. But all that training has to go through the Corps. That is one of our deliverables by agreement with FEMA every year.
So let's talk about that training, because I know here at the Readiness Support Center, we track all of those things to make sure that people are quote-unquote deployable in case of a mission. And there are a ton of readiness requirements for this mission as compared to some of our other missions. So what are those readiness requirements? What's the training like?
Yeah, I'd say getting into this program, there's a couple of things that we ought to set the tone for right now. Is you have to have the right personality and the right skill set. You have to have the desire to do this. And again, this isn't for everybody. If you have a type A personality, this may be the right mission for you. But as far as the readiness requirements, it's quite involved, and I'm going to let Mike tell you about that. He tracks our readiness for all of our team members, and it's a very intense job.
Well, the readiness itself involves training and meeting medical requirements. And the training is basically two kinds. There's the online training that you have to do in the office. Then there's the hands-on training that we're required to do. And the online training It's roughly, what's say, 120 hours, yes, would you
Well,
say,
I think
to complete the training?
that and the in-person training, the required training classes where you have to physically attend, but it's a minimum 120 hours.
And like, as Tom was saying, there's the classroom training that we also have to do. But then there's the like regional training, which is a weekend. There's another training, the Capitol Shield training, which is 2 to 3 days, which is actually hands-on, get out in the field and do some training. And then there's medical requirements where there's immunizations we have to have. There's a government physical that we have to complete. And you have to be ready, you have to be physically fit and ready to be able to deploy. And the third part of it is the equipment that we need. We have equipment that is issued to the structure specialist. And then there's equipment, like your own personal equipment, that a person is expected to maintain, provide, and basically have on hand so they can, once we're called, they can just put it together and be out the door.
So personal equipment, are you talking like laptops and that sort of thing, or are you talking more like respiratory fit masks and that sort of thing?
The respiratory fit masks, PPEs, clothing, gloves, helmets.
We have a rescue helmet. We don't wear the standard core hard hat because it doesn't meet a certain rating. Fire boots. And the individual equipment, which we keep in a go bag, we may also call a 72-hour bag since we're supposed to be sort of self-sustaining for 72 hours. Right, Mike?
That's right.
We carry our own meals with us just so we can survive, and the object is doing the mission. But we have the chance to personalize that rescue gear too. A basic set of gear that we're all issued will suffice, but as time goes on, there's improvements, and you want to make sure you're going to have the best things you can afford to take down range with you. And there was one other thing I wanted to add. One of our training requirements is a week-long class that's taught by firefighters, and it's a fire rescue class called Rescue Systems 1. And all of our core structure specialists are required to take that initially before they can become deployable. Tremendous class. It has nothing to do with engineering. It teaches you about some shoring and ropes and pulleys and moving heavy objects and things like that. It's really a valuable class, and it also teaches us, if we had to, it's not our main function, but to operate in a rescue environment.
So that brings me to my next question then, because I think when a lot of people hear urban search and rescue, they are picturing people pulling victims out of buildings and doing searches and that sort of thing. But what exactly, is that what we are doing as the Corps, or it sounds like a structure specialist has a little bit of a different function?
We are all minimally trained to do a rescue operation, which means to pull a victim, but that isn't the structure specialist function. We're really technical advisors. So we are qualified under the requirements of FEMA through a position description for the structure specialist, and also through the National Fire Protection Association, a document, NFPA 1670, that sets the guidelines for us to be able to work in that kind of a rescue environment. We're really technical advisors to the leadership.
So what does that mean exactly? What kind of advice are you giving to the leadership in an urban search and rescue mission?
If we are asked to assess a damaged building, damaged structure, we're going to either advise on how to mitigate the hazard. Maybe we don't enter through the main door. We might go around the backside. And we would mitigate the hazard by roping off the area that we aren't supposed to go into. And then we also might monitor with specialized equipment, surveying equipment or other high-tech equipment on the stability. If the building starts to move, we want to alert the leadership and allow them to bring the rescuers out of the building. We're really only there during rescue or recovery operations, and our job is really to keep the rescuers safe. So we are really first responders. But we're not the ones typically who are doing the rescue. We have an engineering-related technical function out there.
When we first get there, we want to make sure that the building is safe before the rescuers go in, which you did mention. That's very important that we have the training and we have the experience to know what to look for. And almost everybody on the team is really dedicated to work with this group and to help out and to make sure that it is safe for the rescuers to go in. And not only to go in, but to do their work and come back out again.
It's fast engineering, and it's not your typical office-type engineering where if you're asked a question, is this building safe for us to go in and do rescue operations? I can't, as a structure specialist, say, I'll get back to you in a couple days. This has to be now engineering. So it's real time and it's fast, and we have the right training to do the job, but that skill set's really very specialized and very important. I think the way we could describe it, if you're a structure specialist, you have to have a little bit of MacGyver in you to do your job, and that's the skill set we're really looking for, is people who can think on their feet and react quickly, be safe, and get the job done.
Tom, so when you say now engineering, that means you don't have the time to get plans or building blueprints or any of that. But do you have that time? Where does that information come from, or how do you handle that?
The engineer who qualifies for this position has a license, which means he has already at least 4 years of professional engineering experience or more. You've seen a broad variety of buildings. So when you go to assess a building initially, you'll know the building type. You should be able to know the age. Those are all things that the engineer is going to be required to know. And if you don't know how to put the building together, you certainly aren't going to be able to take it apart. And that knowledge is something you must have to understand how to stabilize that building or recommend those types of efforts to shore the building and keep it from falling over, mitigate any hazards. So it's really up on the engineer. It's why this is not for a freshly graduated engineer. It has to have someone with experience.
I did want to ask really quick, you talked about assessing buildings, but this is, I want to make clear, different from our infrastructure assessment mission, correct?
It is correct. We are not looking for habitability type assessments, which infrastructure assessment has a different role where individuals are trained under the ATC Applied Technology Council 45 and 20 to assess structures for habitability or occupancy. And our concern is really, is the building safe to go in and perform the rescue operations, whether it's an initial search, and if there's a victim that's found, to remove the victim safely. And that's all our function would be regarding a building. There's other things we are capable of doing, and we do have as a function list, which is work with GPS. We're qualified for a wide area search and other things, but that's our main function.
So recovery operations, or this isn't a recovery operation, this is a response operation, and to me this seems like one of the most immediate response activities that happens, because you're talking about pulling victims out, you're talking about life and death here that happens within those first minutes or hours after an event. So what is the deployment like in that sense?
For the particular mission, which is I think we could all agree that the real function is post-earthquake, but the way the world is today, this could be after a terrorist attack or a bombing or a hurricane or a severe threat of tornado. So we could be deployed for any of those. But you have to be able to go fast, because there is a time frame that you will have success in finding live victims. And if you delay your operation, our operation, that success rate goes way down.
So it seems to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong though, that deployments are kind of rare in this mission, but when the cadre is deployed, it's to these just gigantic defining events in our nation's history, like Oklahoma City, like 9/11, like not in our nation, but the Haiti earthquake, international response. So what is it like for an STS in these high-stakes, high-tempo environments? What's a deployment like, just personally?
I will say that there's always a adrenaline rush. When you know something's happened, you wonder if they're going to use the resource. And your first question is, am I ready? And of course, you are ready, but you're going to double-check your deployable gear and be vigilant of the news and whatever information you can gather to be able to go out the door. And it is intense, depending on the particular mission. Even if it's an international mission, we may have to rapidly deploy, assemble somewhere here in the States, and then mobilize to the international venue, the rescue or recovery operation, the response. And there could be other shots that we're required to get, but all those things have to happen in a timely manner. But the key is we have to get there fast.
When there's an event, I always go home and make sure I got everything ready. The bag it's always packed, but I always make sure that I go through one more time. Is everything there? Is everything ready? We take MREs with us, make sure that they're there. Have the phone ready, waiting for Tom to call or someone to call to activate us. And like Tom was saying, the adrenaline is high. And we're just go home, get ready to get out the door.
But when you get out the door, when you get to such a chaotic scene, what is that like for an STS? When you have to operate in such a just crazy environment and life and death is at stake, what's that like personally?
I think the training allows us to understand what we're going to be faced with the first time. And when you get there, your ability to focus on what the mission is really first and foremost. I think without the training, it would be an overwhelming task. But through the training that we are required to have, it minimally prepares you for that event. And it is intense, and there's all these things that happen that we can't really describe here in a conversation, but there's possibly some type of agony. There could be a lot of noise, construction and whatever. There could be debris in the air. All those things are interfering with you, but you have to focus on your job.
I know, like when I deploy, as you're approaching the site, your mind is like working a mile a minute. You're observing all the surrounding area, people, equipment, like Tom was saying, the noise, dust, and your mind is just like working, okay, what is a disaster? Trying to look at what's happening, what needs to be done, and it's pretty incredible. Your mind is just like constantly trying to analyze and come up with solutions and analyze this and trying to, how can you help here? What are you going to do there? You're just working overtime.
So then I guess that leads me to after a deployment. What happens then personally? Because like not saying that this is the same at all, but 100 years ago I used to be a crime reporter at a daily newspaper, and I did nights and weekends, right? So statistically, lots of crime happens nights and weekends, and I would go to these horrible things like homicides and stabbings and shootings and fires and fatal wrecks, and you see things that affect you as a person. They have to, and I can't imagine that doing this job as you gentlemen have for so long, that stuff still affects you. So how do you handle that after a deployment?
The Corps of Engineers and I'd say the federal government has learned that, and they've done a good job, is making sure that when you redeploy or when case by case, it could be before you leave a response site to go back home, they'll make sure that you have a critical incident stress debriefing with a qualified representative, somebody who's a professional in that area. It helps that if there's victims involved, typically we don't have a personal relationship with them, so we know we're there to help and to do a job. But that's my own experience, and Mike, you've got, I'm sure, something else.
At the end of a mission, I look back on what I did and what was done and try to think, okay, was it something I could have done better, or is there something I did wrong? And but for the personal, I think sometimes when we find the victims, it's good if when they come out, you're really happy if everything works out well. But if they don't, then I always feel so sorry for their families. I always think about their families, how they've lost a loved one, and you learn to deal with it, but you feel sorry. You feel appreciation for your own family. I think appreciation for life in just general after something an event such as that.
Yeah, I can't. I only lasted a few years in my old job because there are certain people, and they are special people, who can do the things that you guys do over and over and still do them well.
Well, the good thing is we don't have to do it too often, so true deployments are pretty rare.
Right, for sure. Now, we've talked a lot about domestic FEMA stuff. Do we do anything to support the military side of the house?
Certainly, because we are a trained asset. Our function can be to support the military, and we have done that. Our mission into Haiti, I'd have to say that they are so much different than the domestic response because of the potential language issues and prosperity or capability of the country.
Well, thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it, and hopefully everyone has learned a little bit more about the US&R mission. We appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to tell a little bit of our story. Hard to believe it's really dates back to 91 and 92, but it's a great mission, and for us engineers, it's a great network of engineering people to be associated with.
That's all we have for today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you've learned something. Please subscribe to our feed and check back for future episodes. I'm Nadia Taylor, and this is Semper Gumby.